A couple of issues. First of all, Dana Boyd's spirited defense of teenagers. She and I have something in common. We're both researchers. And that spirited defense, which I agree with, actually comes from data. You see, there's a stereotype of young people today in the internet that's pretty negative. They're net addicted, glued to the screen, losing their social skills. The internet is dumbing out an entire generation. This is the dumbest generation, as one book says. That's the title of a book, How the Digital Age Stupefies Young Americans and Jeopardizes Our Future. He says, don't trust anyone under 30. Another book's called Generation Me. Author says we've created a little army of narcissists. All they care about is themselves and YouTube and Facebook and tweeting and so on. They don't give a damn about society. They're into drugs and alcohol and terrible youth culture, and they're violent, and they can have their 15 minutes of fame being a bully online. It's a very negative view. The only problem with the view is that it's not supported by data. Actually, they're not the dumbest generation all around the world. They're the smartest generation. They're graduating from high school and university like never before. It's never been tougher to get into the best schools. Standardized tests are at an all-time high. In most places in the world, IQ has been going up year over year for many years. Now, if you look at a country like Canada or the United States or Western European countries, there is a problem. The top third are spectacular compared to previous generations. The middle third are pretty good, not bad. The bottom third are dropping out of school. But to blame the internet for that is sort of like blaming the library for ignorance to me. I mean, the problems with the bottom third in the schools is not a failing of technology, it's a failing of public policy. We need to fix the problems with the schools. As for, they're net addicted. They had the attention span of a fruit fly. Well, actually, and they have no social interaction. Time online is mainly taking away from time watching television. The baby boomers, their parents, watch 24 hours of TV per kid. These kids watch less TV and they watch it differently. They don't give a darn. Actually, youth volunteering in many OECD countries, including Canada and the United States, has been growing year over year in both high school and university for 15 years. Drugs and alcohol. The percent of kids in the United States that are clean in high school, that don't do either drugs or alcohol, has been growing year over year for 15 years. So we can be enormously hopeful about this generation. And when it comes to the stereotype, let's try and look at the data. You know what? The kids are all right. Let's just take a break here on our digital natives. They're going to be okay. Now, of course, there's lots we have to do. We've got to ensure that there isn't a digital divide. We need to reinvent the schools for a new model of pedagogy that's appropriate for the new collaborative ways of learning for this new generation. Parents need to take responsibility that their kids are protecting their privacy and that they have balance in their lives. In the workplace, as they come into the workforce, we need to find a way to better integrate this generation, because right now we're doing a bad job. They come into the workforce at their fingertips. They have the most powerful tools ever for innovation, probably better than a lot of our major institutions. They've got a great culture of innovation and collaboration. What do? Well, we stick them in a cubicle, try and supervise them, and treat them like Dilberts. So there's a generational firewall shaping up in many of our institutions. We need to overcome that. There's a lot to be done, but don't blame the kids. Okay, our next speaker, very excited to introduce the Chief Information Officer of Intel. And Kim Stevenson has led strategic IT support for the company's global operations for some time now. She's got an organization comprised of 6,000 IT professionals, and she delivers, as you can expect from Intel, leading technology solutions that enables Intel's business strategies for growth worldwide. But she believes the single most important aspect of her job is to serve as a voice of a customer. A CIO? A voice of our customer to Intel's engineering and development teams. Please welcome Kim Stevenson.
Good morning. I want to reflect back on about a week ago when Felix Baumgartner, from 128,000 feet above the earth, jumped and traveled 833 miles per hour in 4.5 minutes to land safely on Earth. His challenges were not insurmountable, but they did face challenges. There was a lack of heat in the suit right before the jump. Figuring out how the human body would survive traveling at the speed of sound is no minor task. But when you see the world through a lens of possibilities and conquering challenges, you can transform the world, and that becomes your new normal. And that's what that's our mission as IT professionals. Transformation really only happens when you have a destination in mind. Intel's destination is, in the next decade, we will create and extend computing technology to connect and enrich the lives of every person on Earth. You might be thinking, that's a big task for one company. But it's not one company. It is our industry. It is every IT professional in industry, in government, in academia. It's every one of you in this room that will make that possible. Through the work you do, you will help us to connect and enrich the lives of your customers, of your citizens, your families, your colleagues, and suppliers. I think that's a pretty good start. We have entered the age of the possible, in which world-changing technologies are delivered every few months, not every few decades. And each innovation that is delivered builds on the previous innovations to continually transform the way we learn, the way we work, the way we govern, and how we communicate with one another. Whether you're running a business or serving the public sector or educating our children, the rate and pace of change is accelerating. And society's expectation of a response has become immediate. I'll give you just one example. So if you think about the transformation over the last 4 or 5 years of bill payments, we used to receive our bills in the mail, and there would be a due date on that bill, and you would generally mail the bill about a week in advance of the due date to make sure it got there and you didn't suffer a late charge. Then online bill payment came, and we all got really smart. It didn't take very long for us to learn how to schedule our bills to be paid on the day it was due so that your money didn't leave your bank account before it was necessary. And as mobile payments grow, what's happening is the bill payment shifts to the point of consumption. When you consume a service or when you consume a good is when you will pay for it. And the notion of paying a bill fundamentally changed. When you have the ability to deliver with velocity, the expectations increase and immediacy becomes the norm. Now here's the kicker, since we're all IT professionals. Whether it's a business leader or a government leader, they expect IT to not only keep pace with those needs that are presented, but also be the enabler of creating that level of velocity. When I think about velocity, velocity by definition is the change in distance over the change in time. But for IT, the way I express that, it's the change in what we deliver over the change in time it takes us to deliver that functionality. And when done right, we create operational speed in the right direction for our organization. Now, I've been talking to you for Just a few minutes. And a lot of things happen in a few minutes. In fact, amazing things happen in internet time. While we were talking, in the last few minutes, every one of those minutes, there were 47,000 applications downloaded. There were 2 million Google searches. And since Don encouraged us all to tweet, there were over 100,000 tweets. I actually think that number is irrelevant and way outdated, because last week we had a president in the U.S., we have a presidential election coming up, and so we had a debate last week. And during that hour and 15-minute debate, on average, there were 108,000 tweets exclusively about the debate. That's what happens in an internet minute. It's not just transactions, though, that happen. Companies are built in short amount of time and change our lives. In fact, most of the companies on this page didn't exist before 2004. Instagram, the newest company up there, was launched 2 years ago in October 2010. And they have surpassed 7 million daily users of Instagram. It doesn't take long to change. Most of the services delivered, prior to the services being delivered that are represented on this page, we wouldn't even have expressed a need for such service. And in just a few short years, we can't imagine living without that capability. The pace of change is rapid, but I submit to you, we are only at the beginning, that the future growth will far exceed what we've seen thus far. So I'm not the only one that thinks that our future is bright. So Peter Diamandis, who is the founder of the X Prize Foundation, he believes that it's not only bright, our future, but it's abundant. So I'd like to share his unique view of how we see the future.
What makes me so optimistic about the future is that we have more and more people coming online empowered to begin solving problems. 3 billion new minds who have never been heard from before are about to connect to the global mind. What will they want? What will they create? What will they invent? What will they solve? Individuals who see a problem can say, I can solve it. And what's making that possible is really the information technologies that we use and take for granted, all enabled by Moore's Law. Underlying all of this is information technology. The fact that our computers are twice as fast next year as they were the year before. And that enables artificial intelligence, robotics, synthetic biology, digital medicine, computational powers that are enabling small teams of individuals to literally do what only governments and large corporations could do before. The technologies that we're providing to kids, to villages, to individuals around the planet, connecting them to the internet, allowing them to educate themselves, and this is where innovation begins. The biggest problems on the planet, water, food, energy, hunger, education, healthcare, these are problems that touch the lives of billions of individuals. Today, the heroes that can solve those problems, they're individuals, they're people who have a passion and a dream enabled by technology, who see that problem and say, I'm going to solve it. I'm going to create a technology, a product, a service that's going to slay that issue. And in fact, it's you, the people in this room, you're building the tools. The world's biggest challenges are being enabled because of the hard work that you're doing. So as you leave this room, remember, what you're building today is going to touch the lives of billions of people. This is the future we're creating.
This is the future we are creating. In this room, the entire IT global community will enable the transformation of this world. Whether you're the creator of technology or the one who uses it in a unique way, we will change the world through one innovation at a time. Computing abundance is really at the foundation of what enables these possibilities. And it's driven by two things. Moore's law, which says the number of transistors will double every 18 months, which essentially translates into it makes computing affordable. And Metcalfe's law, which says the number of nodes squared, the power of the network is equal to the number of nodes squared on the network. And what that does is it makes computing accessible. So I thank Gordon Moore and Robert Metcalfe for giving us the foundation to create and extend computing solutions. When we look at our landscape, though, our computing landscape is growing. It's growing in both what the traditional things of computing that we see as well as new. PCs, tablets, phones have gone ultra-thin, ultra-mobile, with an abundant set of applications for anything you can imagine, but it's not just traditional computing devices. TVs, home security systems, home appliances, cars have all become smart connected devices. In fact, in the US, 60% of car purchasers state that the car's technology is the reason for the purchase. That's different than it was a few years ago. We now have cities, congested cities, communicating with cars about where available parking is in that particular city. We have dealers who communicate with cars that drive by their dealership saying, it's time for an oil change, or it's time for your 50,000-mile service. Retailers are transforming, whether it's sensor technology to help them restock the shelves and track perishable goods, or it's digital signage to create a new way to run a sales promotion instantaneously versus thinking about pushing that information out to many stores. By 2015, there will be nearly 15 billion connected devices. That is 2 times the number of people there are on Earth. And the possibilities that that enables is unlimited. In fact, I think the inventions that will come will surprise many and will be much like we've seen today, that we will find a need for the uses of the new technology. But everyone in this room, we're IT professionals. And when you think about the possibilities enabled through 15 billion connected devices, we have to ask ourselves, will the traditional IT processes we use enable the velocity needed to create those possibilities, to make that happen? So I submit we have a choice to be made. You either disrupt or you become disrupted. And I'll refer back to an example to help us internalize what that means. So back in 1998, Kodak was the market share leader in the photographic segment. And they had 2/3 of the market, and they employed over 145,000 employees. But as most know, they struggled to make the digital transformation. It wasn't that they weren't aware of it. They struggled to execute on a digital transformation. Today they're in bankruptcy, and their market cap is about $50 million, and they're being forced to sell a very rich and vast patent portfolio. Their number one competitor at the time was Fujifilm. And Fuji decided about the same time to take a different path. They decided that they had technology from the film and photographic segment that could be applied to other industries, electronics, healthcare, and they decided to diversify the company. Today, they get that less than 1% of their revenues come from the photographic film segment, but their market cap is $8 billion. And they are very strong in this diversified model. At the same time, we had a whole new category emerge in the industry. And there was a collection of companies that function much like I gave an example of Shutterfly, much like Shutterfly. And they didn't exist in 1998. And what happened was they looked at the opportunity, and you have to put the context in, because what happened from 98 till now? We put a camera in every pocket. So camera and the ability to take images was never more abundant than in that particular decade. And so the Shutterflies of the world, they decided that the industry wasn't about film and image capture. It was an internet business based on personal social expression. We shifted from the Kodak moment to personal social expression. And we now print things and see things and images that we would have never conceived back in 1998. So Shutterfly's market cap is $1.1 billion, and if I added all the companies that were like that, it would far surpass anything that we could have imagined. So our future is better than we think. But if we don't make a conscious choice to be either the disruptor or the disrupted, I think our future is much less certain. But Intel has a long history of disrupting ourselves. And we're pretty accustomed to dealing with that concept. Back in 1968, we were formed by Gordon Moore and Robert Noyce, and we were a semiconductor manufacturing company, and we made memory devices. And that was pretty successful. But what happened was we had a lot of increased competition, a lot of price pressure came into the market, and Andy Grove decided, you know what, I need to shift the company into this direction, into this new thing called microprocessors. Very big bet for the company, very successful bet for the company. With the introduction of the PC and the PC ecosystem, that served Intel well for 20 plus years. Then we hit another inflection point in the industry in the early 2000s when the pundits in the industry then said the PC was dead also. And what we did was we shifted the company to be more of a platform company. And we launched Centrino. And if you remember when we launched Centrino, Centrino was the first platform that had embedded Wi-Fi capability. And so we didn't just launch the PC, we invested in the ecosystem to build out hotspots around the world to improve accessibility and broadband capability around the globe. And that has served us extremely well for the last decade. But once again, we sit here and we are at another inflection point. You might have seen phones, and the latest pundits again say the PC industry is dead. And so we're transforming our company again, one more time, into a complete computing solutions provider. So it won't matter what device or what form factor you tend to need to view information or create information, we will have computing solutions capable of doing that. And we will build and invest the ecosystems that enable those transformations to happen. So when you think about where we are in the world today, governments are under a lot of pressure to run efficiently, have to provide greater levels of service and transparency to our citizens. And I mentioned that we have an election coming up, and I think the rate and pace of change is best illustrated if you look back 4 years ago. So 4 years ago, in the US presidential election, one candidate chose to use social media and business intelligence to drive their campaign. That candidate made a difference and got people to vote that never had voted before and enabled a revolution in how US elections are done. So when you think about election that we're going through now, BI and social media are the norm. They're expected, and it's not just at the presidential level. It's at the Senate level, the Congress level, every municipal government. If you don't have a social media strategy, you're really not in the game. But it goes even further. If you watch election coverage today, what you see is you have big screens, maybe not as big as this, but big screens, and the newscasters will be moving that data around, creating charts and flows of the information. And what are they doing? They're using business intelligence and analytics to visualize the status of the election. Because with that visualization comes greater understanding of the state that we are in preceding the actual election day. So visualization and gesture and touch have become the norm. If, in fact, I just do this, people know what I'm doing. I don't need actually a device in front of me. All aspects of government are going to change. And when you think about some of the big challenges in the world, in the next 4 decades, we're going to see enormous amount of population growth. And most of that will happen in urban cities. In fact, today, over 50% of the world's population live in urban areas. So you think about urban renewal, city planning, disaster planning, it all becomes a complex problem to solve. So I'd like to show you one example of how, with the advanced analytic capability and visualization, we can actually help solve some of that problem. I'd like to invite to the stage my favorite city planner, Mr. David Sid. Hey, David.
Hi, Kim. How are you doing? All right. So, well, as a city planner, I'm always on the move. Whether I'm in the office or in the field, I really want to have all the tools I need with me. And one of the tools I use is the computer. But in this case, I have a Toshiba Ultrabook because it's really light and thin, as you can see. Don't mind the wires. That's actually to get the demo up there on the screen. But here's actually another feature that I like to show off to my coworkers is that I can convert it down to a tablet right there and then hang out and just really show off this cool technology. The application that I have on this is something from parallel geometry. And what their technology does is they take existing data, data such as Geographical Information System
GIS,
data.
yeah.
GIS, exactly, for those that like to use acronyms. And with this data, they take that with building codes and regulations to create a program. And this program is used in the virtual world to recreate the buildings in 3D. So instead of having a 3D artist sit down and redraw a building and all the different rooms in it, that could take months. This program does it in real time here, directly off the database that we have in the back room there. As you can see, the models are very accurate, even to the point where if I want to, I can zoom into this.
And
this
that's a real city, right?
Yeah, that's actually Paris, City 17, if anybody recognizes it.
So we'll go to
from
Paris
there.
today.
Yes, it is. And as we go through here, we can go down to the level of looking at the railing on a balcony and seeing like, okay, wall joints or even to that level. If you go by the Intel booth, you actually see they could get down to the faucet or the pipes in the wall, that accurate. Another thing to show off really the power of this application is if I zoom out here, there's the ability to turn on virtual sensors. And what you can do with this virtual sensor is emulate what a real sensor would do. And then you could take the two of those results and compare them against each other to quickly see if there's any kind of code violation. So as you can see here, I have that model right here that I can quickly take a look at. So very powerful stuff here. And
so that could really help with permitting or code violations, safety issues that a city planner might need to address.
Exactly. And even if I need to go to a street and like build a new subway, to dig a hole, to do all that pre-measuring and approximation of how many trucks to get to that site, I don't need to take that time closing off the street. I can already figure that out and then have that closure a lot shorter. It saves me time as well as the citizens have to use that street.
That might be enabling velocity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Great little equation you have up there. So this is a way that you see how this platform uses the existing massive amounts of data to visualize the data that you need to show to your customers, your clients, your bosses. But also, if I have this platform, if I forget this at home, at my office, I even have, like, say, a phone right here that, might have the simple viewer of it. and I can use that for what I need to do on the
Yeah,
road.
same information, but if you might need to go on site to check it out and
Yeah.
you happen to have your phone with you.
It's right there,
That's great.
and you might like this. It's an Intel phone.
That is an Intel phone.
Yeah, see, it's right there.
Intel architecture in the phone.
It's everywhere.
Love it. Great. Thank you, David.
You're welcome.
So as more and more governments digitize their information and use available existing information as the example with the GIS, it allows that information to converge in a way that creates information and usability that didn't previously exist. So we talked about city planning, and it might be good to think about the velocity in permitting or construction, doing a construction assessment for big long-term projects, or even disaster planning and recovery for cities that experience disaster. Could transform the way we do that work. Education, though, is also an exciting area that is going through a massive amount of transformation. In fact, I would tell you the way we learn is changing. When we choose to learn is changing. If you are familiar with the Khan Academy, it's an online model that has about 3,400 video lessons out there. And they range in science, computer science, math, humanities, a wide range of topics. And they've delivered over 200 million lessons in a short amount of time. It speaks to people want to learn in different ways. We believe at Intel there is a high correlation between high-quality education systems and the success of individuals as well as the prosperity of communities. Intel's efforts have been around enabling teachers to bring technology into the classroom, student education, technology, and content delivery. We built the Classmate PC. In fact, we launched the Classmate PC about 6 years ago at a WCIT event, which is it's a low-cost, purpose-built for education solution. And since then, we've added to that the Intel Learning Suite of software. And we take this software and we help teachers with their professional development and create online resources for the students to actually learn in different ways. Helps them develop critical thinking skills, problem-solving skills, helps them to collaborate in a different way with their students. So I'd like to ask my favorite teacher now to come out, David Sid.
Hi.
And could we talk about show maybe an example of the Intel Learning Series?
Most definitely. And like you said, it's really, I have my classroom right here, my Classmate PCs, and my students here as well. And with this, like you said, it's not just about having the Classmate PC, it's about having the right content, the teacher training, as well as the internet connectivity that really has a great teaching solution. And this is really what I use to really get the students of mine to be engaged. And here on the screen, we have the Intel Learning Series. And one of the applications here that we'll see on the screen is an application from Know, which is KNO. And it delivers digital textbooks to the classrooms through the internet. This one in particular is a biology text, and my students can go through and really go through and learn about the mighty mitochondria. And they might look at some terms that they might not know, such as adenosine triphosphate.
I don't know what that is.
Sure. Does anybody out here know what this is? Raise a hand.
We have some. We have some
Oh my God.
smart biologists in the
Biologists
room.
out there. Great. So we actually, well, if the students didn't know what it is, they can actually go through and select that word and then just click on it and find out more about that term. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Oops. I think, well, it's something cool.
Yeah.
So what we want to do also is there might be some hyperlinked information as well that links us to information that's on the internet, such as this one on cellular respiration. They go ahead and click on that, and it goes out to the internet, caches that down onto the system, and then they can actually use that video to really learn more about what happens with that cellular respiration. And this is really what helps engage the students because it's rich media and it sticks in their mind really well.
Yeah.
So with this, we could see that this video is telling them about electron transport chain, but let's actually hear it. It's actually going to come up here in a second. She's going to tell us all about...
The electron transport chain is a series of protein...
there you go. So if you don't get anything from that, oh well, you'll get more from the Kim's speech here.
Yeah.
You walk out from Kim Stevenson's speech, I learned everything about stellar respiration.
Yeah, because people actually learn better when they experience something versus simply seeing it or simply reading it. So it's that immersive capability that makes it
Exactly.
rich, right?
Exactly, and as you can see, this is how we really transform the way textbooks are used in the classroom. But what I'm going to actually show you is how we're transforming the labs that are happening within the classroom. For instance, let's go to our physics experiments. Here's one from LabCam. Take a look at kinematics. And with kinematics, we can actually use this to track motion of objects that are happening in this lab. For instance, we have a pendulum here. And in the application, I'm going to track the blue ball, maybe the red ball there as well. And then as I swing it, the computer's tracking them. And as you can see, the students can really measure and determine what the periodic motion is of these balls as it relates to the string length. So you see, this is really, really exciting to students.
And previously, simple observation, or it would be difficult to track that with this level of precision.
Exactly. It's a way to excite the students, too. They remember this lesson. They remember this experiment. But you're also preparing them. You're actually giving them the skills, the 21st century skills that they'll need in the global economy.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Thank you, David.
You're welcome.
As I said earlier, creating an educational advantage for our students is important and dependent upon it's completely dependent upon, do we have access to the technology and do we have access to the digital content to make them successful? So an example where this is working extremely well is Portugal. Through a public and private partnership, Portugal launched a program called Escolina, and the objective was to strengthen the education that they provide to their students. The results are pretty insightful because in just 2.5 years, Portugal has delivered more than 2 million PCs to its students and teachers. And their program for international student assessment scores have gone up by 20 points. But not just that. During that time, they've created 1,500 jobs and nearly 2.3 billion euros of economic activity. The architect for this program is Dr. Mario Franco, who's actually here today. I'm not sure where he is in the audience, but he's here today. But like any great person who sees the possibilities, he didn't stop at Portugal. And he's founded an organization called Millennium at EDU. It was announced in September at the UN. Intel and McAfee are participating with Millennium at EDU to reach 1% of the students in the participating countries and deliver them affordable access to computing technology by the year 2015. In fact, if your country is interested in this, because this is a brand new area, contact one of the Intel representatives and we'll help you get connected. Over the last decade, Intel has invested over $1 billion in education, and the Millennium at EDU program will build on this, making computing more affordable and accessible to all those students and teachers who are part of the program. Healthcare, affordability, and accessibility are also a big issue across the globe. Managing cost and ensuring the availability of healthcare professional skills is a challenge shaped by 4 megatrends that we see in the industry. The first is we have an aging population. So there are, by 2050, expected to be 2 billion people who are over the age of 60, and we have about 600 million today, to give you an idea of that growth. That implies a different type of care needed. We also see the rise of collaborative and coordinated care, care being delivered in teams, as becoming the norm. It should dramatically lower admission and readmission rates to hospitals and allow you to treat citizens in a variety of settings, not just the traditional hospital. We see the rise of paying for value versus today we pay for service. And we see the rise of personalized medicine. Over the last decade, the cost of doing human genome sequencing has dropped from $100 million for a single genome sequence to under $1,000 today. What that does is it makes possible, right, to target diagnostics and therapies based on a person's medical history and specific genetic makeup. And I don't know about you, but that's more exciting to me than me being treated as the average of a bunch of statistically sampled sizes. So I'm going to ask Dr. David Sid to come out, and let's talk about, maybe show an example of how healthcare is changing.
Hi. So here as a doctor,
that education must have helped you. Now you're
definitely,
a doctor.
my mother would be proud. So as a doctor, I actually have a lot of applications that I use on my PC in my office. And I hear about a lot of new technology that's coming, such as Windows 8 and tablets, as you probably saw earlier. Mm-hmm. But what I want to do is still use that technology. And I actually can with an example here. As you see, this is something we call the medical point of contact. And what I'm going to do is just undock this tablet here.
So that's a convertible tablet, regular laptop, but now in convertible form.
Yep, a tablet with a keyboard attached to it before.
Nice.
So for so many options that you have here is incredible. So here with the Windows 8 tablet, again with the cables that help me get the demo up to the screen there, is that I have the Windows 8 tile on the side there on the left, and helps me organize applications in a way that I can easily access that. And you can see there's things like my medical records that I access through the internet as well, right there in the browser. I also have my medical imaging, as I could bring up there. And I'm seeing a CAT scan as I'm going through the different layers, and so it's a little animated there, so I can quickly identify any potential issues throughout that CAT scan. I also have telemetry information. So this information is actually coming from a monitor that's the bedside to one of my patients. So you can see their heartbeat, their EKG. So you can see she's alive, which is good. And, you know, as you said earlier, this is a collaborative tool. Mm-hmm. So let me actually go ahead and bring up Dr. Webb here. And Dr. Webb's helping me look at this patient, determine if there's anything that I might have missed, lend his expertise to me, and work with me on maybe finding a solution quicker here. Mm-hmm. I could go to my patient. But what's really important is with all this is that there are many different applications I'm showing. That's non-trivial to run all these tasks at the same time. Usually it was done on the desktop PC. Now it's something I can carry with me in a new platform like this tablet.
Yeah, and a patient might not have to travel to an expert.
Definitely.
Right? You have the benefit of the doctor who knows you and an expert collaborating to get the right care.
Exactly. And for me as a doctor, this is the device I can personalize, take with me, whether I use a core tablet or I can actually use something like a atom-based tablet. You can actually see that it also has that capability of multitasking.
Yeah. And I could see the doctor sitting at the bedside explaining all of this to a patient to help better inform decisions being made.
Exactly.
Right. It's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was a great mobile point of care demo, and it shows that with collaboration, how you could get different outcomes for benefits to the patients as well as the doctors. I encourage you to stop by the Intel booth at the showcase to learn more about the demos we've talked about today, but all of our efforts around transforming healthcare, education, and government. Intel has several initiatives, coordinated care being one, to address that affordability and accessibility challenges. In mobilizing the healthcare workers, so you saw the couple different types of devices, but when you think about how healthcare is delivered and expanding to multiple settings beyond a hospital, mobilizing the profession is important. And we're working with device types that will be very suitable depending on the particular needs of a clinician or a nurse or a healthcare professional in the settings that they're going to operate in on any given day, because we don't think it's one device for one person at all times. We also are very focused on consumer wellness. And in this area, we're focused on the interoperability of devices so that individuals can control their healthcare records. We think that bringing your own healthcare records and the summation of what that is will inform better decisions by your medical team. And then the last area that I want to mention is the personalized medicine. So while the cost of genome sequencing has come down and it makes it possible now to target the right therapies and treatments for patients, now you have an enormous big data challenge. The way that data is synthesized and can impact the individual care, but aggregated up to change outcomes for large-based populations is important, and we're working on investing in those platforms to manage that big data and provide new insights about the information that exists in our healthcare records. So whether it's government, education, or healthcare, the one common thread that we have is the connection of these remarkable innovations to IT. IT is, as a profession, is leading and transforming our world. It's the people in this room that will take those opportunities and make them possible. Knowledge and ideas of the world's population aggregated and synthesized into uses that we haven't dreamed of yet. So as Intel strives in the next decade to create and extend computing technology to connect and enrich the lives of every person on Earth, we can't do it without you. We need every person in this room to buy into that challenge, to believe that we are in the age of the possible. And we just might get there if we're working together. Thank you.